people, how you doing? I hope you're having a goddamn great day. Welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be implementing and replicating Xavi's 4-2-1-3 system for the likes of Barcelona. Of course, they haven't used this a whole lot. They've mainly stuck to the 4-3-3, but they have used this system in the past. They've used a 4-2-3-1. But I think that the 4-2-1-3 system more or less reflects and replicates, Xavi's 4-2-3-1 system. So yes, we will be looking to replicate those tactics into your game, FC24, of course. They have used this formation around 5 times so far this season. They also used it against PSG when they got knocked out, I know. But that wasn't really down to the system failing. That was more so down to the bad decisions that were made. Of course, Cancelo for the penalty, Araujo for the red card. And to be honest with you guys, that first 20-25 minutes or so, the game plan was working very, very well. Having the likes of Pedri drop into the space with the likes of Frankie de Jong, collect the ball, progress it forward, running that midfield, overloading that midfield as well. Also offering a lot of good protection for the back line. It did tend to work very, very well. Of course, you had the likes of the young teenage superstar in Yamal on the right and Rafinha on the left. And it was just working tenfold. And of course, the likes of Gundogan staying high up the field alongside Lewandowski and then dropping into the double pivot as well with Pedri, rotating into that space. So we will be looking to implement and replicate that specific system into your game, FC24. Of course, as always, if you guys don't mind smashing that like button, subscribing as well, it helps the channel out. We are so close to 6,000 subscribers. It's absolutely unbelievable, if you ask me. So anyways, let's hop on straight into the goddamn video. Okay, so for the formation going forward, I've selected the 4-2-1-3 system, and I've only really changed the 2 DMs. I've obviously made them into a central midfielder. So other than that, there's no major changes or requirements to it, and therefore it would be 1 goalkeeper, 2 centre-backs, 2 full-backs, 2 central midfielders, 1 attacking midfielder, 1 striker, and then of course 2 wingers. Moving on though to the tactics. Now the tactical vision that I've selected is tiki-taka, and then I've made it custom. So what I would advise you guys do is try and, implement tiki-taka assistant coaches. That could definitely help with the system, because of course, the likes of Xavi is trying to incorporate, along with his own, system, the tiki-taka style of play, the quick pass and move, consistent, threats, consistent passing options all around the ball carrier. And you want to try and have that throughout the course of your field, and of course your gameplay as well. But I think custom suits it. And more so, these specific tactics are there to try and implement and mimic a realistic Xavi system. So, as for the defense and the defensive style, of course, pressing after possession loss, you have quite a lot of pressing in the central areas of the field. Of course, de Jong can run for days, Pedri, Xavi, Romeo as well, all very good at being able to press when out of possession of the ball, looking to win it back. Of course, I forgot to mention the likes of Ilkay Gundogan, very good at being able to win the ball back in those central areas, as well as your wingers, of course, whether it's a Torres, whether it's a Rafinha, whether it's a Joao Felix, all very good at pressing in those wider areas as well. So you want to try and implement that pressing after possession loss style of play. As for the team width, however, I've set this to 60. They do tend to, flare out a fair amount, trying to match up in those 1v1 situations with the opposition, of course. But at the same time, you want to also have this style of play where you try and foul the opposition, whether they are trying to, build up quickly through the lines. That way it can incorporate the ability for your team to also be able to regain its shape, give them, buy some time essentially for the defenders to reshape into their back line, for the midfield to restructure itself. So you want to also try and implement that as well. And then more so the nice spread out, team width will allow you to do this very effectively. As for the depth, I've set this to 80. Now, of course, with the tiki-taka style of play, you only are really allowed to set it to 65, but I've obviously gone ahead and pushed it further up, and that's what essentially made it a custom tactical vision. But I put this on 80 because essentially Barcelona tends to play a nice high line. They've got quite a bit of pace in their back line as well. I mean, Koundé, Araujo. I know Martinez isn't the fastest of players, but of course there's also him, Christensen as well, who has been playing in the midfield of late, which is quite cool to see. And yeah, so you want to you have a decent amount of recovery pace in your back line to try and prevent any of those mishaps from happening, whether it's a quick counter attack, a quick through ball. You want to give your team a lot of space between the goalkeeper and the defensive line, but therefore it also helps in possession, because you are going to be playing a possession-based brand of football, and that nice high line does compact and push, just naturally pushes the team higher up the field to almost pen the opposition back in their own half at times. So moving on to the offense, the build-up play that I've selected is slow build-up. Now this does go hand in hand with how I previously set up the 4-3-3 formation under Xavi and of course for Barcelona. You want to still have that, of course, building out very effectively from back to front, having the centre-back show for the ball, having your double pivot also show for the ball, pop up in the little half spaces, collect the ball, progress it forward, but not overly hurrying too much, consistently having a nice flow to the game, you could say. In terms of the chance creation, I've set this to possession. Of course, you are looking to play a possession-based brand of football, and what this does is it consistently allows for the ball carrier, the person that's in possession of the ball, to have at least 2 to 3 passing options in and around him at all times, looking for that consistent rotation, consistently passing and moving as well. And again, this does go very well with trying to recreate realistic Xavi tactics. In terms of the width, now, what I noted was, of course, more naturally Barcelona with the likes of Yamal on the right and Rafinha on the left. Yamal kind of tended to hug the touchline, so that's more of an instructional-based style of play, but more so, it was a very compact system. Well, not super compact, but it was somewhat compact compared to what you would expect. So therefore, I've set this to 40. It allows for the striker and the wingers, or I will say the left winger more so, as well as, of course, the midfield, to be nice and close to each other. That helps with the interchanging of 5-yard passes. Like I say, that quick pass and move, the rotation in the midfield. You want to still try and replicate that for the system as well. As for the players in the box, now I have set this to 8. They do tend to overcommit quite a few players in that attacking area, surrounding the likes of Lewandowski with more attacking options, you could say. So you want at least 4 players in and around there, with around 2 to 3 players on the edge of the box, and more so 8 allows you to do this. As for the corners and the free kicks, of course, as always, it is set to 4. Okay, so taking a look at the individual instructions to try and help replicate an even more realistic system, starting off at the back with the goalkeeper, of course, Ter Stegen. He is set to come for crosses and be a sweeper keeper. Of course, with that high line in play, you need and require a keeper to be very proactive and reactive to how things are shaping up in the game. So if he needs to make that run off of his line, he can do this very efficiently, very effectively, and more so sweeper keeper allows him to do this as well. In terms of the saving on crosses, Ter Stegen is one of the best in the world. So when a ball is whipped into the box or fizzed into the box, he's going to be very proactive off of his line, claiming that ball when it is obviously put into the box. Not overly relying on the centre backs, but of course he can do this as well. But more so very aerially dominant. As for your 2 centre-backs, of course, you've got the likes of Ronald Araujo as well as Kubasi, who has been fantastic. I haven't watched a whole lot of him, but what I've seen, I think this kid is the real deal, and most Barcelona fans will also agree with me on that. But in terms of how they play, Araujo is set to his base set of instructions, a bit more of the aggressor of the 2 centre-backs, with Kubasi being the more conservative, the cover centre-back you could also describe him as. So he is set to conservative interceptions. That's the only change for the centre-back pairing. As for the likes of Cancelo and Koundé, again, they do have very differing roles. The likes of Cancelo is allowed the freedom to bomb down the left-hand channel as much as possible, also allowing for the likes of a Rafinha to tuck inside a bit more. In terms of the run type, now, we have seen Cancelo in the past, invert into the midfield, make those underlapping runs, trying to support the winger, or at the same time also providing the overlap. So I've set this to mixed. I think it reflects and more or less recreates his actual positioning throughout the course of the game. So you can have him do a bit of both. And then finally, the defensive positioning is set to stick to position. As for the likes of Koundé, so he does tend to get forward every now and then, but more so he tends to stay back while attacking, kind of formulating a back 3 type system. And we did see this in that first 20-minute period with the likes of PSG, or up against the likes of PSG, I should say. The run type will also be set to mix, allowing him to, when he does, get forward or bomb forward, either invert or potentially also provide an overlapping run, looking to try and support the right winger. And then, of course, just like with the left-hand side, the right-hand side will be set to stick to position. As for your double pivot, of course, you've got the likes of Frenkie de Jong and, of course, Pedri. For de Jong, he is a bit more of the DM, you could say, covering the back line, trying to shield them as best as possible. So he'll be told to stay back while attacking, as well as stay on the edge of the box. He does tend to also push himself nice and high up the field, but that does help with the possession, the consistent rotation, the ability to surround the ball carrier with passing options. So he will more naturally also progress higher up the field in certain moments. The interceptions will be set to normal, and then, of course, cover the center and free roam. You want to try and allow for your double pivot to yes, cover the center in those defensive areas, or when in, or when out of possession of the ball, looking to try and shield them. But when in possession of the ball, when building out, you want to have them, drifting all over the place, pulling players out of position, popping up in the little half spaces, collecting the ball, passing it, trying to, find the next open space. That's more or less what you want from this double pivot. As for the likes of Pedri, a very similar role, but for the attacking support, I've set him to balanced, and this will allow him to, again, have a bit more freedom to, bomb forward. And I did note that with Gundogan and Pedri, they did interchange positions. More so, Pedri started off alongside De Jong, but again, Gundogan would also, drift into that, left half space and allow for Pedri to take up the more attacking position. So you want to try and replicate that very efficiently as well. But for the support on crosses for Pedri, he didn't really get into the box, or he's not really well known for breaking into the box, more so on the edge of the area, looking to try and facilitate creates and make, a moment of magic out of nothing. As for the interceptions, it's set to normal, and then of course, just like with De Jong, cover the center, and then of course, free roam. As for your attacking midfielder, Ilkay Gundogan, he's set to come back on defense, and this does help with the interchangeability between him and Pedri. The support on crosses is set to balance. He does tend to, play just off of the shoulder of a Robert Lewandowski, breaking into the box every now and then, or at the same time, he can also choose to stay on the edge of the box and look to try and join up with the other midfielders and rotating, the play and possession into those wider areas as well. The positioning freedom is set to free roam, and again, this does go hand in hand, paired up with the interchangeability that you're looking for as well. And then, of course, the interceptions will be set to normal. Okay, so taking a look at your striker in Robert Lewandowski, he's set to stay central. Of course, he does tend to drift, but not as much as what you would expect from a balanced approach. So that's why I've set him to stay central. He does tend to have quite a lot of movement in behind him or on the sides of him. So you want him as that focal point, more centrally down the middle. The attacking runs is set to mixed. Of course, I have said this in the past, but Lewandowski, he offers a lot more than just a strong physical number 9. He offers the holder play, yes, but he also offers the ability to make those runs in behind, or maybe even dropping a bit deeper, collecting the ball and then looking to interchange passes with the midfield. So therefore, I would say the mixed approach best reflects his role in real life, of course. The interceptions is set to normal, and then of course, finally, the defensive support is set to basic. So every now and then, you do see Xavi expect the likes of Lewandowski or whoever the striker is to sometimes drop a bit deeper, drop into the shape, provide a bit more of a defensive layer for the side as well, looking to try and protect or see out a lead or something of that sort. But at the same time as well, it does offer him the opportunity to stay further forward and also be an outlet for potential counter-attack. Okay, so out wide to your left winger, of course, it has been Rafinha of late, and he has been very productive in front of goal, making those more central runs at the same time, allowing for Cancelo to operate in that wider left space. So in order to replicate his role, he's set to come back on defense, also looking to help the likes of Cancelo in those wider channels, picking up the extra runners, preventing the crosses, trying to win the ball back as best as he possibly can. The chance creation is set to a balanced width, and this allows him to sometimes hug the touchline, other times drift inside, take up a bit more of a central attacking role as well, allowing for Cancelo again to, overlap down that left-hand channel. As for the support runs, you want to try and have him on balance because it incorporates everything, right? It incorporates the ability for him to make those runs in behind, be a target man. He is very good at holding up the play, back to goal, linking up with a Cancelo, a Pedri, a Gundogan. Or he can also choose to come a bit shorter, link up with the midfield, and this does allow him to have that more natural central approach, which we have seen of late. In terms of the interceptions, I've set this to normal, and then of course you want him in that attacking area with the likes of Robert Lewandowski, breaking into the box, getting on the end of crosses, cutbacks, and making sure that he's putting the ball in the back of the net. And then finally, we have got the likes of Torres, or it could have been Yamal. Of course, he's not in the game just yet, but of course it was Yamal for that first 20 or so minutes, and then the red card happened, and then substitutions had to be made. But you want him to obviously also drop a bit deeper, help support the likes of Akunde, as well as stay wide. Very good at hugging the touchline, being a touchline type winger, taking on his man, beating his fullback more times than not. So you want him in those wider channels as much as he possibly can be. The support runs, just like with the left-hand side, is also set to balance, incorporating the getting behind approach, the target player, as well as, the ability for him to sometimes come a bit shorter. In terms of the interceptions, it's set to normal, and then of course for the support on crosses, I've set this to balance, allowing him to sometimes operate in those wider spaces a bit more efficiently, not always breaking into the box, but if needed, if required, he can also look to arc his runs into the more attacking area of the field. And there you have it, guys. That is how I would implement and replicate the 4213 Xavi system into FC24. Of course, as always, you guys can let me know though down below. Have you enjoyed the video? What would you rate the system out of 10? And of course, for me personally, I really like it. So I'm going to give the system an 8. There are a few flaws. I think that down the right-hand side, it can be somewhat exposed. Sorry, not the right-hand side, the left-hand side, it can somewhat be exposed, especially with the consistency of your fullback bombing down the left channel. So for the opposition, it will be the right-hand side. For you personally, it will be the left-hand side. So it can be exposed, but the fluidity, the attacking ability, it really works so well. So you guys can let me know though down below what you would rank and rate the system out of 10. And until the next time, until the next one, I hope you have a goddamn great day. I'm out.